How's it going, everyone? It's Keanu from the 808 Whip Co. And today I am excited to bring this little overview of a 10-foot 12 plat bullwhip I just finished, which is a replica of Terry Jacka's Indy 4 style bullwhip. So I try to get, as far as construction goes, as close as I could to Terry's design. So as far as inner construction, the handle starts off with a 7-inch by 3/8 inch fiberglass rod. At the top, there is a hole that's bored out, and in that hole sits a piece of steel cable. And at least as far as I understand it, that cable was to reinforce this area right in the first section of the transition. From there, the rest of it is just made of chrome split cowhide for the belly and the bolsters. At least if I read that right on Indy Gear, I believe that for this Indy 4 style whip, Terry described only putting a single belly in here, which is what I did. But the thing about the chrome split cowhide is it's basically just suede, and it's very good at soaking up grease. So there's a pretty good amount of weight just from greasing up that chrome split cowhide for the belly and bolsters. Of course, as far as the overlay goes, it originally started, or I guess I should say, the hides I used were made from natural tan. And I ended up just dyeing them saddle tan because I did have some saddle tan hides on order, but I just couldn't wait any longer. So I just ended up going through David Morgan's shop and dyeing those a saddle tan. Here you can kind of tell a bit of a contrast between the main section of the thong and the handle itself versus the two decorative knots. And the reason why that is because since the chrome split cowhide underneath was extremely greased up, and I'm putting more plaiting soap on this section and the rest of the whip in total, it just seemed to have darkened it just like it did with the real whips. And even if you see pictures of the real Indy 4 whips made by Terry Jacka, you will see this contrast there as part of just the natural habit of the leather soaking up the grease. So another thing that I tried to get right on this was the cut of the leather. So here is an example of a 6-foot Terry Jacka bullwhip that was a little bit towards his retirement time. So this one, as you can see here, it has a nice long handle. This one is actually 10 inches, but it goes about 11 with a knot going past the actual end of the handle, which is something that I did here. Like I said, it was 7 inches, but this is actually around the 8-inch mark, just to kind of like, you know, I guess that was just something that Terry did. Here, for the cut, Terry's whips are extremely, I guess we can call it shallowly cut, or the plaiting angle is much shallower. So you can see here how that end, it seems just a little bit wider than what you typically see, like in areas like here where it's almost somewhat at a very sharp sort of chevron shape. And that's when you're basically cutting the strands a bit smaller than what I guess some people would consider ideal, just to get a full coverage of the inner diameter. But here it starts to go off, and right there you can see it gets really nice and shallow. And supposedly, according to the video, a video that I had watched made by Adam Winrich, Adam said that it kind of gives it a more refined look, and if you have more stitches per inch, it makes it flow a little bit better. And I have to agree that I do like the way these whips flow out. Also, one thing I try to replicate on this whip is, especially with this fall hitch there, you can see that all 12 strands make it from the handle all the way to the fall hitch. So what's interesting is I have seen multiple different examples of Terry's whips, and not all the fall hitches are done the same. It's almost hilarious to see different types, but this one in particular that I have, the 6-footer, has the last strand actually looped back through the half hitches, and if right there you can almost just barely see right there the end of that strand where it was trimmed off. So that's what I ended up doing here, and since this one is newer, you can almost tell right where I cut it off. And that's just something that I've noticed. Even the actual Indy 4 whip, I believe, had only half hitches here. I'll bring in another example of a Terry Jackal whip to show you what I'm talking about. And right here, you can tell that that last strand is just a half hitch and it's not tied back. If I was to pull on this, it's actually kind of loose already. But if I was to loosen that up, it could potentially unravel that last strand and the rest of the strands would follow suit. Which is why I think that this style of the fall hitch is a little bit less efficient, or maybe not efficient, but not as desirable for a whip as, say, this style here. For the fall, I ended up going with white Latigo, but because the actual whip was not white Latigo, I had to take it and I dyed it a darker brown. So a couple situations of dye work here, but you know what? I thought it turned out pretty good. And for the most part, I'm really glad that I at least got a chance to try it out. I really wish I could have kept this whip, but the customer is waiting for it, so I'll get it packed up. But not before I give it a few test cracks. So I'm going to go outside right now and give it a few cracks.